now? Mom? Yeah, go ahead, Larry. Mom? Yes, go ahead. Okay. Mom? I had to tell him what I did to save you from more sorrow. I am so sorry to the families and the girls that I killed. I want them to know I'm so sorry. And I pray every day for their daughter's soul. Mom, I love you. I'll be such a bad son. I just hope that you forgive me, Mom. I love you with all my heart. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm done.
My mother, unlike the other ladies, never went missing. She was seen the night before her murder. So, even though the story is sad, that was something that I was happy about. Today has been the hardest thing I had to do in a long time. I'm doing it for you. For as long as I can remember, my mom worked at a chicken restaurant. And she would bring home chicken every day to the point where we didn't want to eat chicken anymore. But we had no choice. We ate the chicken. In our eyes, we had the perfect mom. We didn't know anything other than her being perfect. My mom's relationship with drugs, I can't pinpoint when it started, but I probably was like 12 nights of her and her friends partying downstairs. And we would find little straws. We would play with them later on in life. We found out that they were using straws to snort cocaine, basically. We didn't start realizing my mom had a drug habit until we started hearing it from other people. And like the kids will come to her defense, like, what are you talking about? Ain't nothing wrong with, our mom, your mom on drugs. But eventually, after a few years, we could tell the difference. But we always, in the back of your head, like, oh, she got time to, clean herself up. We seen her friends that used to get high with her turn their lives around. So, like, we were just patiently waiting on her turn. But her turn never came.
This is with holding hands. Didn't care about what people would think about interracial relationship. I love you, Laura. I miss you. Well, the first time I laid eyes on Laura, I was at a basketball court, and Laura, she was just kind of told me that she's interested in me. I looked over at her, and I got bright-eyed, like, yeah, she's pretty. So I went over, and we just started having a great conversation. She laughed, and I loved her laugh, and that pretty smile she has. That was a great, warm feeling that it went long after that.
But it was a
what we referred to as a dump site. They were both from the same area, had the same lifestyle, prostitutes, black female prostitutes. Some of the investigators thought, well, that's just a drug overdose and somebody dumped the body. But I kept thinking to myself, just something ain't right here. From one of the other detectives told our boss that we might have a serial killer. The boss said, don't talk like that. We don't want that. I'm sure that they were worried about overtime costs because during those times, our overtime was limited. The budgets were tight. And if it's a serial killer, it's really going to be expensive, so it was a budget issue, I'm sure. I can remember distinctly saying that if these were white blondes, that we'd be busting our ass right now. I mean, I hate saying that, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of if you put that on the show, but that's the truth. So, and I'm okay with that. I don't remember when. We got another one. Black female, naked. Okay, on my way. I do remember saying, you believe me now? We've got a serial killer. Every investigator, every detective has their own way of dealing with when they see a dead body. I'm a Christian. I believe in God, go to church every Sunday. When I get to a death scene, I take a quick 10 seconds without anybody ever knowing it, and I say a prayer. Dear Lord, please let me figure out what happened. Take her soul, do what you need to do with it, but give me everything I need to find out what happened, and then I move on. Linda was working as a prostitute, and this date picked her up in an old beat-up truck and took her out on a gravel road where he assaulted her, had sex with her, refused to pay her, kicked her out, and she got dumped out on the side of the road. I got called the next day to do the investigation on what happened to Linda. I picked her up in my squad car. I drove her all over the South End, asking her, Linda, if you see the car, point it out to me. And during that time, we started laughing and joking. Linda was hilarious. She was very, very funny. She had a couple bad choices, and she was an addict. The last time I talked to Linda, telling her, you need to stop this, you're going to get hurt, and I know, Dave, I'm going to. When I get there, the crime scene person takes me to the scene. So I walk over and I'm like, yep, that's her. That's Linda. She's laying there unclothed. I remember seeing some maggots. She had a string or shoestring. I felt like I let her down. There was no DNA found on Barbara. There was no DNA found on Sabrina. And the first DNA that we were able to collect was from Linda Neal. We initially thought, okay, as soon as we get the match, we got our guy. Then DNA is useless. So you have to have the match. So
after seeing different murders broadcast on the news, it did kind of concern us because the profile of the women were kind of my mom's profile. Black females that battle with drug addiction. I remember we seeing it on the news. And I want to say everybody that was found my mom knew on a personal level. So, we would tell her need to start staying home more, and she will always tell us, like, don't worry about me, I'm good. She was like, oh, I'm not like them. In our heads, we're like, you are like them. But I guess she thought she was exempt from whatever was happening in our community. Eventually, her drug habit got too far out of control. I just began to see her spiral, down. First, it was basically her physical appearance, and then she would stay gone for days at a time. It might be 2 or 3. I do remember one time her coming to us saying that as she was ready to clean herself up, and she allowed us to take her to drug rehab. We took her, we dropped her off at the door. About an hour later, off. So it was to the point where we knew we could only do so much. And when she left that facility, we kind of knew that this is going to be a battle. From that day forward, it was a battle.
On drugs, crack cocaine, I believe I tried it before Laura did, and we both liked it. There's no doubt. And it was just pretty much a weekend thing. Within about 4-year span, I'd say it almost became a daily use of the drugs. So I constantly fought it. But I was worried about Laura. It was pretty late, about 11:30, midnight, something like that, and some woman knocked on the door. Well, what do you want? She goes, I want to talk to her. There was a car out there with the car running and the lights on. I didn't know who was in the car. Laura went to the door to talk to this woman, and about, 5 minutes went by, and Laura says, I'm going to take off with them for a little bit. I'll be back. I said, it's late. Time, what are you going to go somewhere? Well, I got to go do something for them, and I'll be right back. When Laura walked out that door, that was probably the last night of her life. I think about half an hour went by. That was kind of where I started getting concerned. So I go out and I start looking for the woman that knocked on my door. I happened to know where she lived, so I went to her house and knocked on her door. I said, where's Laura at? Oh, she ain't here. I said, where'd she go? Where is she? Oh, she took off with him. And I said, well, who is he? I don't know today, and I think she shut the window. I probably looked till 2:30, 3 in the morning. I had this feeling. I couldn't get it out of me. So I couldn't give up on the search. I went home, got some sleep. Then I searched again the next day. I know she might be it. And nobody's seen her. Nobody. And I guess after a couple days, maybe 2 days tops, I went to her mother's house and I says, we gotta file missing persons or something. This is not like Laura. And it was the most awful feeling. Did she run away? Did she just leave town?
last day, she had come into the store where I work. And even though growing up, we knew my mom loved us, it was hardly ever said. You would feel it, but as far as hearing it, you never heard it. And this day, you know, we said our goodbyes. My mom was going out the door, and she doubled back. And she was like, Mia, you know I love you. It shocked me, first of all, because she never said that. And of course, my natural reaction was, Mom, I love you too. And those were the last words we said to each other.
When the task force was formed, there were just a bunch of detectives, a few crime. And what would happen is every day we would be given tips to go investigate. And like me and my partner at the time, we would try to get the best tips because we wanted to be the one that caught the guy. We had, I think, 11 or 1,200 tips, and they just kept coming. I mean, it would be everything from, tip would be, I think you should look into this guy because I know he sees prostitutes all the time. Everybody on that task force worked 12 to 16-hour days. We're basically looking for a needle in a haystack. That happened. We were down there. We were everywhere. I mean, how did this happen? How? We had several detectives in the area where the girls were being picked up. We were watching the prostitutes. If a prostitute got picked up, we were getting license plates. We were following them. We were watching them. We were doing everything with the manpower and everything that we had to stop. It literally happened right under our noses. So the feeling after getting that call was like a punch in the gut because you're doing everything you possibly can and you think you're taking steps towards solving it, and all of a sudden, kapow, you take 2 steps back. Found on Taggart Road, Peoria County, out near Farmington, completely naked, except for I think she had one sock on, laying face down on a muddy gravel road. With Brenda, I do remember that the scene really gave us nothing. I mean, about all we got from the scene was some inconsistent tire tracks and a victim, you know, and that was it. I mean, so yeah, it's very frustrating. It's like, so what's this give us? Nothing. Nothing. It gives us nothing. Every time there's a body, the pressure builds. We needed him to make a mistake so that we could catch him. We're missing something. What is it? What is it? I mean, that's what detectives do. They get everything they can. They talk about it. They debate about it. They argue about it. They agree about it. But the bottom line is always, what are we missing? Because once you find what you're missing, you've got it. It's done.
Three days after last seeing my mom alive, I get a call from my uncle, and he's panicking on the phone, and he kept saying, Mia, Brenda's dead, Brenda's dead. At the time, it didn't even register like what he had said. All I can remember is I remember getting there and all these detectives and police there, and all I can remember asking them is, how do you know it's her? Like, you're telling me this. What information do you have that you know it's her? And they had fingerprints. So they knew it was her. So once I got that confirmation, all I could think about is my sisters. Like, how would they start on somebody without their mom? Like, who wants to break this news to anyone at times? It's just the first one. One of the hardest things I ever had to do.
One of the other detectives looked into the tip from Vicky, and that was the very first time. And I distinctly remember the detective saying, we need to look into it. So me and my partner, we went to his house. The house Larry lived in, I think, was like a single stall garage that had been converted to an apartment, which was directly behind his mom's house. He had a koi pond and some beautiful flower gardens that he planted between his house and where his mom lived. Larry was easy to talk to. He wasn't very intelligent, but he seemed like a decent guy. I mean, he just seemed like a regular blue-collar Midwest person. He bragged to me about the koi pond he built for his mom. He bragged to me about the flower beds he did for his mom. I knew that we had DNA from one of the victims, so I asked Larry for a sample of his DNA for comparison purposes. Larry declined, but during the interview, we allowed Larry to smoke cigarettes, and it was a routine for me to take a cigarette butt if I needed it for DNA. After the interview, Larry had eaten all the cigarette butts so that he wouldn't leave his DNA behind. As soon as I realized that he'd eaten the cigarette butts, I was like, okay, this is him. This has got to be him. Why else would you do that? I mean, I don't know anybody who eats cigarette butts, do you? I'm not sure. The plastic water bottle that was in the room when he ate the cigarette butts, he ate the cigarette butts and forgot about the water bottle. I'm not exactly sure how they got it. But we got DNA back that came from Linda Neal, and it would match Larry. That immediately gave us enough to get a search warrant.
I did it. How many of you? Only 8. Larry, hang in there, right? Okay. Hang in there. And how did they die? Did you strangle them? What happened? Yeah. All the movements? Your hand? Well, what about the one we found with the shoestring around it? I don't know, I've been watching court TV and I was trying to make it look different than... That was pretty smart. No one, here I am. I burned the bodies. Okay.
After he got done killing them, he would go out in his backyard and he would build a fire. He'd let it get really, really hot, and then he would lay the body on top of the wood, the hot coals. And as the fire was burning, Larry would take like a spade shovel and he'd chop the bodies up little by little as it was burning. And then after that, he would shovel the pieces into a bucket and then go dump them in various areas around town. Tamara, Shirley, and Shakanda. I asked him why, and he just said he don't know. Of evil. I mean, there's no way to comprehend how evil you have to be to do what he did.
recording. Do it.
Of the rain that night, he felt he couldn't burn her body because the rain would put the fire out. So he decided to load her dead, naked body in his car. He drove around and he threw her body a rope. How he did her. We was able to have an open casket funeral for her. Like, seeing her body, it doesn't do much, but it brings some kind of closure.
Hear what he did to her. There's no body. She was chopped up and burned. Chopped and burned. That was one of the most devastating ever in my life. I never felt rage more powerful than that. I had thoughts of what I could dare, busting in on the door or wherever they were and saved her. That's the hard part. I let her leave with a serial killer that I had no idea that was out there. But when I had to actually tell the kids, that's when I think the reality hit me the hardest. I can tell my older ones. They can tell what I was going to say. I can see it in their face. I can see them starting to break down before I told them. And I just remember them all going, "Yeah, Dad, we believe in angels." And that's when it cast, well, now your mother's an angel. Your mother's got wings now. She's an angel. And I could tell they could tell what I was about to tell them. That is not right, man. That is not right. It just ain't right. And it's all because of a bad guy. A bad guy got rid of my soulmate.
Do you remember a man named Detective Dave Hoyle?
That man's name, I do remember. He was one that told us if we ever needed anything, if we ever wanted to know anything, that he would be honest to us and give us the most information he could. And when I say, and I don't think he know how much he means to me and my sisters.
Brenda's daughters very clearly remember that you cared.
Yeah, it is nice to be able to help those people. And it's hard when you try to help and you just don't get it done in time. I mean, you can't act like you care. People will see through that in a second, and it's like you have to care.
I'm content that I don't have to worry about my mom. We know where she is. Like, it's not a worry. Like, is she gonna come home? Is something gonna happen to her? I just hate the way that it happened. The way she will be remembered to most that didn't know her. A drug user and a prostitute. Just because the other women had a pattern of prostituting, you can't label all these women the same. They all have different lives, different reasons for doing what they did. And I feel like that hurts more. Like, if you didn't know her and you Googled her name, all you're going to see is Larry Bright. She didn't die because she had cocaine in her system. She died because she touched a lot of people.
Wow. So this was the last time she was in her home safe. We had been friends since I had lots of memories. And she didn't know she was not what she was going to have to go through.
My sister had been killed, murdered, abducted by somebody we didn't know. The impressions on Carla's neck, where you could tell hands had been around her neck and was trying to get those hands off of her. I thought, was she begging for her life?
How did you kill her? I just killed her. Knowing that this was the answer that detectives had been looking for the one knew who did this to Carla. And, so anyway. I loved my father. I still do. Can't stop loving somebody. The thought that my father, which I love so much, could spend an eternity in hell.
To living with legal blindness. Right here? Okay, thank you. Prognosis is irreversible, and that it will probably only get worse. I miss seeing pictures of my parents, my relatives, my family. So the ones that one of my favorite photos that I remember of Carla is that picture of Carla with the hearts, her hair done. I see a girl who's looking at the future, is excited about it. Got a life in front of her. Carla was 17 and I was 12. I was a good student. She was popular. She was a good daughter, good sister. Rodney McCoy was Carla's high school sweetheart. He was just an all-around, all-American boy. Played football for the high school. Rodney would literally light up when he'd see Carla. And Carla would light up. Rodney was a hero to me at that time in my life. High school quarterback, just a nice kid. On that night, Carla and Rodney went out on their Valentine's Day. Pictures were taken and, mom and dad, giving all y'all have fun and we'll see you when you get home. And she looked beautiful, just looked like a princess. And they were off. And then the rest of our night was waiting for them to come back to hear about how fun the dance was. It was about 1:45 in the morning, and I heard a car coming up into our front yard. I heard a door screeching open, and I heard Rodney's voice yelling, "Mr. Walker, Mr. Walker, help me, they've got her. They're going to hurt her bad, I know they are." Dad immediately started asking him questions, where are y'all at, where's she at? And he was telling her, we're in the parking lot. The west side, were kissing. The door jerked open. Rodney said it all happened so quick. According to Rodney, the guy said, "I'm going to kill you," and pointed a gun about 6 inches from Rodney's face. Rodney is being hit on the back of the head, in front of the head, and he's not sure what's going on. He has no idea. And then Carla is being dragged out of the car by this person and say to Carla, "You're going with me, aren't you, sweetie?" And he said he remembers looking at Carla, and he said that's the last thing he saw before he passed out. I just knew something had changed. I knew something horrible had changed, and I get teary-eyed. And yeah, so I knew something horrible had happened. I just didn't really have the life experience to comprehend what I was witnessing. But I knew something horrible had happened. And I know my mom and dad had to feel that way.
When I was shown the Carla Walker case files, there were 4 boxes about this size, 4 of them, full of case file information. It was a case that had been worked over the last, worked on it, and they hadn't found resolution. I wanted to start from the very beginning, broke down the case files, and then start reading all the detective notes from day one. Where Rodney had parked his car, they found Carla's purse out on the ground, and they find this magazine. The magazine release on this particular type of weapon is at the bottom of the grip. It's probably bumped, and the magazine fell to the ground. A purse and a magazine. It's not a lot to work with. Back in 1974, Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, the Fort Worth, all start this search for Carla. And for the next 3 days, the community gets involved in the search. And there were thousands of people that were searching for Carla. I think there were a lot of people that were optimistic that Carla had been being held somewhere and had been kidnapped. So I know there was a lot of optimism and hope that Carla would have been found alive. At the crime scene where Carla was found, it had been very, very cold. She was very well preserved. She still had her dress on, assaulted, and choked just shortly after her abduction and after the sexual assault had taken place. The original investigators did a great job of bagging her hands to collect fingernail scrapings. They bagged her dress, her bra, her panties. And that's pretty much the evidence that was found at the culvert where she was recovered. Just sadness when you see something this horrific. And think about the crime committed that night and the loss that the family experienced. Losing Carla, this was the end of her life. as far as what I felt about the case and who the offender was, it's typically somebody that's close to your victim. So, quite honestly, I felt that it was going to be somebody that knew Carla and was close to Carla. In going through all of the case files, I had suspects. And this ranged from friends of Carla, ex-boyfriends of Carla, people that had called in. I really did feel, with all of the work that the detectives had done prior to me, that it was solvable. I believed that the information was contained in those case files. It was just going to have to be.
We drove to the morgue, and this really changed my life. Seeing my mom and dad go in there, and then, I heard my mom scream. Like I'd ever heard. But when a mom sees the body of her young daughter who had been kidnapped, brutally beaten, raped, her face had bruises all over it, dry blood in her teeth and some of her hair that they were walking out of the door. My dad had his arm wrapped around her, was holding her up. She just cried silently. And he was silent all the way home.
I don't remember crying. I think I was just going through motions. I was just in shock. But it's just like to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I had never felt or heard of anything like that happening. So it was a very scary. Like, that person's out there, he's going to do it to another one of my friends. That was probably the biggest thing, was the fear that took over. I met her in 3rd grade, and we had been friends ever since. She was just so full of energy and just smiled and got along with everybody. The day of the dance, Carla called me and said, "Hey, I've got to go to Cloth World and I'm going to bring my dress, and do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah." Carla had just gotten a promise ring from Rodney. But I remember the plans being that when she graduated, they were going to go to Texas Tech, and then after they graduated, they were going to get married. I treasure that I got to talk to her before she went to the dance. I was never going to talk to her again or see her again. And the funeral was at her church. Everything was such a blur, and I think it probably had to do with being in shock. I didn't want to accept it. But they had an open casket. As I got up to the casket, and I remember I just felt, my body just, I don't know, didn't have any strength anymore. And I passed out in front of the casket when we walked by. The lady that had been sitting next to me was by. The funeral made it more real, that they really did find her body. She's gone. She's not coming back. after the funeral, I was exhausted, and then the family phone rang in the kitchen. I picked up the phone, and they just started breathing real heavy on the phone. They would ask, what size bra do you wear? Have you had sex? What kind of underwear do you wear? And if you don't answer these questions, I'm going to... And I just screamed and hung up the phone. And when my mom came in, I was a bawling basket case. I was very scared. Scared of, was I the next victim? I got phone calls where they would say the one right the day of the funeral, but then I would get pretty perverted phone calls. They did put a tracer, and I know you had to stay on the line a certain amount of time. It was very terrifying to get those calls because you had already experienced something you've never so real. And so to add horrible calls on top of that, even just the breathing heavy in the phone. Is this the killer? It's just felt a fear of nothing that I'd ever felt before or never will probably feel again. After this happened, nothing was ever the same again. Mr. and Miss Walker were never the same. And they kept Carla alive as much as they could. But they were never the same. Mr. Walker, graduation, he definitely was there taking pictures, making sure he was, when my first child was born. He came up to the hospital. But he came up there and took pictures. Well, it just meant a lot because I wanted Carla there for those things, and she couldn't be. But I also knew how he was crushed, that he missed out with that with Carla, but he was happy to be. I knew the pain that he was feeling. But it was joy, too.
Glenn McCurley was a truck driver at the time of killing. He owned the exact same make and model of gun as the magazine that was found at the crime scene where Carla had been abducted. They interviewed him extensively. He was insistent that he did not have this gun, and he said that it had been stolen just a few weeks prior. They asked him why he didn't file a police report. He'd go in 1961, and he wasn't supposed to have a weapon, so he did not want to file a report about the gun being stolen. They did conduct a polygraph with Glenn McCurley, and he passed it, and so he was excluded for passing the polygraph. Suspects that came and went over the next couple of years. There had been rumors of ex-boyfriends that were in conflict with Rodney. There were some drug dealers that people had accused of abducting Carla. So there were a number of rumors out there that really had to be put to bed and ruled out after that. In 2019, you're hoping that new technology might help you solve the case. We still had Carla's clothing, and we had Rodney's clothing. So a number of items that were available for us to send off for testing. A CODIS quality profile off of the bra, and that profile was uploaded into CODIS. You're hoping that after all this time, this person that did this to Carla would have committed other acts, and his DNA would have been in the system. And unfortunately, we didn't get any hits. It wasn't usable unless we had a specific DNA individual to match it up. We learned about a lab in Houston and told them what we had, and they said, if it's good quality DNA, it's not degraded, we believe that we can work with that. That means it is used up and there is no more remaining to be able to be used. That was the last amount of DNA that we had. And so if this is consumed, we're back to square one.
In 1974, I was blessed. I had a good family. Not a perfect family. My dad was my protector and provider, and I know in his heart he felt like he let his beautiful daughter down by not getting justice for her. He referred to Carla as his flower. And he used to tell her, by the time Mom died in 2015, I think she also too died of a broken heart. It was a very dark time. My mom had died, had a sister that could never get off my mind. It's easy to give up hope, but then you just realize you can't give up hope. That's all you got is hope. And, every day's a new day.
My automatic reaction was, there's no way. Just total disbelief. Couldn't believe that that would even be possible. Growing up, we lived just a couple of miles from their family. And the love my father had for me, it was incredibly supportive, no matter what I did, mistakes and all. He was always there. He had a funny side, had a magnetism about him that people loved to be around. Yeah, people loved him. Everyone did. But he felt it was always something that he was incredibly troubled about. Just didn't know what it was, though. But now it seems so clear to me. Didn't want to accept it. I think that we all still had some hope that somebody's made a mistake. This can't be true because of who we knew of him.
Glenn McCurley was hiding in plain sight for so many years. He had been married for 50 plus years. He had had 2 children. He never really did anything that brought attention to himself or his family. He really just laid very low the entire time. This was the last 46 years. I knew who did this to Carla. And, so anyway.
In the case, and we had seen at one point they talked to Mr. McCurley.
I told her that same story I told you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, you sure got the wrong fella, because I ain't never killed nobody.
He was tapping his fingers on the armrest of the chair and clenching his fist, and He was trying to figure out what did we have on him again about getting a swab from him. He kind of felt obligated at that point to give it to us and not deny it. When we left his residence, I knew we would be making an arrest soon.
I don't know who she is. When was I supposed to have done this? I've never seen her, never met her, never talked to her. I wouldn't know her if she was standing beside of me.
Your DNA was on her body, which means you had to be there and you had to participate in this. There's no question about that. It is evidence that does not lie. Mr. McCurley, is that your DNA was found on Carla Walker. Okay? So there's no question about it.
I did do it, I guess.
Can you tell us what happened?
How did you kill her?
I just choked her.
You've been holding on to that for a long time. It's about time you let that loose.
What a huge weight.
I'd been out drinking quite a bit. It's just, I didn't mean to. I choked her to death, I guess.
So you choked her in the car, and is that where you raped her as well, in the car? And then you dropped her off at the other...
No, I can't remember all that.
He admits to choking her and killing her, but he has a really hard time admitting to raping Carla. The one thing that he also continued to deny during the entire interview was the fact that he had this gun. And basically, I just confronted him about the gun and said, do you still have it?
And we're not asking you something we don't already know. We wouldn't come to you with it if we didn't already know.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Where do you have it in your house?
Up in the ceiling.
And so we immediately drafted a search warrant and recovered the gun from exactly where he told us it would be. I mean, it's like that final piece of the puzzle that it all comes together. And he tells us the whole story.
Glenn McCurley, the gentleman who kidnapped, raped, and murdered my son a mile from the house that we live in. He drove right by the house where Carlo lived, taking sons to school, picking them up. He knew where we lived, I have no doubt. That really made me angry. But it's true. I feel compassion and forgiveness. I do. And by me having compassion and forgiveness in my heart, evil has no control over my spirit or my day-to-day thoughts in life. I hope that Carla was happy. And she knew we didn't give up.
It was a very strange, sick feeling. That it was someone that lived so close that made it, I'm sorry, even worse. That he was still here in this area. And my body, just the goosebumps, just came all over my body. That's when I realized, well, he's been caught. There was a peace that I haven't had since it's happened. There was a time period that I had dreams about when we graduated. She was there, but I never saw her face. I just saw her long blonde hair. I dreamed that when we went to college, she was there. Any major step in life I did, I dreamed about her. I felt like she was living with us. But I never saw her face. And I only remember she was on a train. And she turned to look at me. And I saw her face, which none of my dreams had ever had her face before. And we blew each other a kiss and she waved goodbye. And I've never dreamed about her since. I feel like she's that happy wherever she is, she's that happy. And she's okay.
At one point during the interview, I asked McCurley, why did you select the spot you did to place Carla's body? Go down this road, and then there's this building, and there's these bushes next to the building, and I put it right there. And I said, no, Mr. McCurley, that's not where Carla was placed. Are you sure you're not getting this confused with somebody else you've done this to? And he pauses, and he says, I don't think so. That's a bone-chilling moment. I don't believe that Carla was his first victim because that's not somebody's first offense. You don't start out. You escalate to this type of offense. So we're very confident that he's done this before. After looking at other cases that we have, unsolved homicides, I feel that I believe Glenn McCurley could be responsible for. And I'm hoping one day we'll be able to resolve those cases. What I want the world to know about this case is that more and more cold cases are going to get solved. And if you've committed a murder and you haven't, I was you.
It was a shock. Yeah, to say that it took the wind out of my sails is an understatement. Yeah. It crushed me. Yeah, I was trying to love him. I love him. If there were other crimes, I wanted him to and confess to those things. I want him to give those families some closure. I thought if there was anybody that could open his eyes and soften his heart, it would be me, because I know he loves me. When I looked into my dad's eyes, I saw nothing. It's hard to see that from someone I loved so much. Didn't get to talk to him about anything because he shut down. He was completely closed off. I felt deflated when I left. It's the most empty I've ever felt in my entire life. It would have been easy to lose him in this way. can't stop loving somebody. And just, it haunts me. The thought that my father, which I love so much, could spend an eternity in hell. But if he loves me at all, he has any love for me at all, he would take that overwhelming weight off of me. That's what I want. I want that peace.
His world had been completely devastated. And I said, Roddy, I said, I'm Jim Walker, how are you? And he goes, he just couldn't even talk. I said, can I give you a hug, buddy? And we hugged. Yeah. I said, hey, you do not own this. This is not your responsibility.
Yeah, meeting Jim was a pretty special moment in my life. He was comforting me. And I think that surprised me. When he could have done the exact opposite, but here he is, he was comforting me.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessing of our friendship. I realized Roddy was a victim. He was a victim as well. His dad had victimized his whole family. In your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I have been blessed to become a friend of Roddy McCurley.
He saw someone in a dark, desperate place and said, I'm going to give that person love. I don't know what I would do without the relationship that I have with Jim. You never know why God puts people in each other's paths. I wish it was for another reason, but I'm happy that we did.
Love you too, man.
The rain never stopped in Blackvale. For months, it fell in slow, rhythmic sheets washing over rooftops, seeping through cracks, filling the air with the scent of rust and decay. It was a quiet town, almost too quiet, until the bodies began to appear. Detective Elior Hayes stepped off the night bus with a half-smoked cigarette between his lips, a black coat heavy with water, and a head full of ghosts he never talked about. He had come to Blackvale to forget his failed case, his failed lover, his city that chewed him up and spat him out. But fate had a way of dragging him back into darkness. On his first day, the sheriff handed him a folder and said, "You'll want to sit down for this." Inside were photos that no human should ever see. Limbs arranged like art, flesh carved with precision, and worse bite marks. The coroner's report described the victims as consumed post-mortem, but the marks were too perfect, too deliberate. Whoever did it didn't just kill, they dined. Elior walked through the rain to the latest crime scene, an abandoned motel on the edge of the forest. The air smelled of copper and mildew. The bed was soaked red. The window was open, curtains fluttering like ghosts. On the wall, smeared in blood, were the words, "We are what we eat." He took a breath, steadying himself, and felt the weight of the town pressing down. Everyone seemed to be hiding something. The barkeep, the priest, even the mayor's wife. Blackvale had the look of a town rotting from the inside out. That night, as he went through the case files, his phone buzzed. "Adrian, still awake? You sound tired. Come by. I made dinner." Elior didn't realize it then, but that message would haunt him for the rest of his life. Adrian lived in a small cottage near the cliffs, where the ocean's roar drowned out the world. He was an artist's charcoal sketches, oil paintings, sometimes sculptures that seemed to lifelike. He had eyes like quiet storms and a voice that made every word sound like a secret. That night, Elior sat at Adrian's table, sipping wine while thunder growled outside. The stew smelled rich, earthy, spiced, unforgettable. "This is incredible," Elior said. "What's in it?" Adrian smiled faintly, his gaze unreadable. Something. Local. They talked for hours. About loneliness. About art. About death. Elior hadn't felt so seen in years. When Adrian reached across the table and brushed his hand against Elior's, something inside him melted. Days passed. More bodies. More missing people. Always the same calling card, dismembered remains, cleaned of all identifying marks. No fingerprints, no DNA. But one night, while reviewing evidence, Elior noticed something odd in a photo of a severed arm. A faint burn mark on the wrist half of a circular symbol. He found the same mark in every case. And then he saw it again, days later, this time on Adrian's forearm, just above the cuff of his shirt. A faint scar, almost hidden beneath the sleeve. Elior froze, his stomach twisting. But Adrian noticed his stare. "It's nothing," Adrian said smoothly. "Old burn. Art accident." He smiled, and the doubt slipped away almost. Almost. Weeks turned to months. Elior fell deeper into the case, into obsession, into Adrian. He began dreaming of teeth and blood, of laughter echoing through dark corridors. He woke with the taste of iron in his mouth. The townspeople grew restless. The priest said the murders were God's punishment. The sheriff said it was a vagrant, and the mayor said nothing at all. Elior found himself walking to Adrian's house more often, desperate for warmth, for normalcy. Sometimes Adrian would hum as he painted a slow, haunting melody that never left Elior's mind. Once, Elior caught a glimpse of a half-finished portrait on the easel, a woman's face, eyes hollow, expression terrified. It looked almost identical to one of the victims. When Elior asked, Adrian said quietly, "I paint what I dream." One stormy night, Elior received a call from Dr. Morrison, the coroner. "I think I've found something," she said. Her voice trembled. "Come quick." When he arrived, the morgue lights flickered like dying candles. Morrison's body was on the floor, throat slit, eyes wide open, her own scalpel buried in her chest. On the wall, written in her blood, was another message. "She ate too much." Elior's breath caught. Someone had been here moments before. He looked around and saw muddy footprints leading out the back door. He followed them through the storm, through the woods, until they disappeared near the cliffs. And there, standing by the edge, was Adrian, soaked, still, waiting. "What are you doing here?" Elior shouted over the wind. Adrian turned, calm as always. "I could ask you the same." Elior raised his gun. "Don't move." Adrian smiled faintly. "You think it's me, don't you? I've seen your mark. I've seen your paintings. Tell me what you did." Adrian took a slow step closer, eyes glinting under lightning. "You think I killed them. You think I ate them. But you've got it all wrong." "Then tell me," Elior's voice broke. "Tell me what the hell is happening in this town." Adrian looked at him tenderly, almost pitying. "This town eats itself, Elior. Always has. I just gave it a face." Later that night, Elior couldn't remember how he got home. His memories blurred, lightning, screams, blood on his hands. The next morning, he woke to find his shirt torn, his knuckles bruised, and his service weapon missing. On his kitchen counter sat a note, written in Adrian's handwriting. "You came to find a monster. Instead, you found me, and you loved me anyway." Underneath it was a sealed jar, filled with dark red liquid. He didn't open it. The investigation turned into obsession. Elior dug into town records, property deeds, hospital archives. He found something chilling. Decades ago, there had been a Blackvale asylum, built on the cliffs. Patients disappeared. Staff resigned in terror. One doctor was rumored to have performed dietary experiments on the insane, feeding human flesh to his subjects to see if madness could be transferred through consumption. The doctor's name was Dr. Adrian Vale. The asylum burned down 30 years ago. Elior stared at the name for a long, long time. The surname Vale. Adrian had never told him his full name. Days later, Elior went to Adrian's house again, gun in hand, heart in pieces. The door was open. The fireplace still burned. Inside, the smell of iron was overwhelming. On the table, plates with meat half-eaten, glasses of wine still warm, and paintings, hundreds of them. Every wall covered in faces, the victims, the missing, the townspeople. Each one screaming silently, each one with their eyes painted shut. In the center of the room stood a large canvas, covered by a black cloth. Elior pulled it down. It was himself. Elior painted in meticulous, aching detail, holding a knife, standing over a body. The face of the victim was Adrian's. Behind him, a voice whispered, "Do you like it?" Elior turned, gun shaking. Adrian stood there pale, smiling, his apron soaked in crimson. "You killed them," Elior breathed. "You killed all of them." Adrian tilted his head. "No, Elior, we did." Elior froze. "What are you talking about?" Adrian stepped closer, holding out something small, a flash drive. "You came here to find the truth. So see it." On the screen, security footage from the woods. Elior's heart stopped. There he was, Elior himself, dragging a body, covered in blood, carving into flesh with surgical precision. His face blank, mechanical. It was the same night he thought he'd lost his memory. The night with Adrian on the cliffs. Elior stumbled back, shaking his head. No, that's impossible." Adrian whispered, "You did it for me. You just don't remember." Elior screamed and fired. Once, twice, 3 times. Adrian collapsed, laughing softly, blood painting the floor like art. "I loved you, Elior, because you were the only one who understood." He smiled, teeth red. "You tasted divine." Elior's hands trembled. The world swayed. He dropped the gun. When the police arrived hours later, they found the cottage empty. No body, no Adrian. Just a single unfinished painting to figures intertwined under the rain, their faces blurred together into one. Months passed. The killings stopped. Elior transferred back to the city, haunted and hollow. He barely slept. He barely ate. But sometimes he woke in the night with blood under his nails, the taste of salt and iron on his tongue. And once, just once, he woke to find a single note on his pillow. "We are what we eat, and I am inside you now." It wasn't signed, but the smell of red wine lingered in the air. Elior sat up, shaking, heart hammering against his ribs. Outside his window, it was raining again. He could have sworn he saw a figure standing in the street watching. A pale face, a smile. When lightning flashed, the street was empty, but the faint sound of humming Adrian's tune drifted through the rain. And from that night on, Detective Elior Hayes never felt hunger again. Because in Black Veil, love wasn't a feeling. It was an appetite, and Adrian had only ever wanted to feed him. It had been 6 months since the Black Veil murders stopped. 6 months since Detective Elior Hayes put 3 bullets into the man he loved. 6 months since the rain began to fall again. The city was louder than he remembered, too bright, too alive. Cars and laughter and meaningless chatter led the streets, but he could never quite hear them. Everything sounded muffled, as if the world were wrapped in fog. He had moved into a small apartment overlooking the river, but the water below looked wrong, to dark, to thick, like something else was moving just beneath the surface. He told himself it was over. Adrian was gone. The butcher of Black Veil was dead. He repeated it like a prayer, though he didn't believe a word. The nightmares hadn't stopped. Every night he saw Adrian standing at the foot of his bed, skin pale as candle wax, whispering, "You're still hungry, Elior." And sometimes he woke to find his sheets damp with something that wasn't sweat. He had quit the force, of course. The department said it was for his own mental recovery, but Elior knew the truth. No one trusted him anymore. Too many inconsistencies in the final report. Too much missing evidence. The official file said Adrian Vale died from gunshot wounds inflicted by Detective Hayes. But there was no body, no blood trail that made sense. And the medical examiner's report disappeared 2 weeks later. Someone had erased him like Adrian had never existed. And yet, every few nights, Elior found notes slipped under his door. Short, taunting messages written in Adrian's familiar cursive. "You're not sleeping enough. You look pale, my love. The hunger will return." He burned the first few, but they kept coming. And the smell, faint, metallic, sweet, lingered in his apartment no matter how many times he cleaned. One morning, the doorbell rang. Elior hesitated before answering. A young man stood there, soaked from the rain, shivering, holding a small package. "Delivery for Detective Hayes," he said, voice thin. No sender listed. Elior nodded, took it, and shut the door. The box was small, heavy, and cold to the touch. He set it on the kitchen table, unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a sealed jar, murky fluid swirling around something red and soft. A tongue. Underneath it, a note. You always loved how I spoke. Elior stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. He wanted to call someone, anyone, but who would believe him now? The butcher was dead, and yet Adrian's voice still whispered behind his thoughts. That night, he didn't sleep. Days turned to weeks. The hunger began. It started subtly, cravings for rare meat, then raw. He'd wake in the middle of the night and find himself standing in the kitchen, chewing something he didn't remember cooking. He checked the fridge once, found nothing. Checked again an hour later, saw a piece of red meat wrapped in plastic, labeled local. He didn't remember buying it. The next day, he noticed the neighbor's cat missing. Elior started keeping a journal, trying to track the lapses in memory. The handwriting changed, sometimes neat and clinical, sometimes jagged and hurried. One entry chilled him to the bone. He's inside me. He never left. I taste what he tasted. I see what he saw. We are the same hunger now. He threw the notebook away that night, but in the morning it was back on his table, open to a new page. The ink was still wet. Don't run from what we are. The city police soon began investigating a string of disappearances, transient people, addicts, the forgotten. No one connected it to Elior. Why would they? But Elior knew. He recognized the pattern. And worse, he recognized the precision of the cuts in the crime scene photos. Just like Black Veil. He drove past one of the sites one evening. The smell of blood hit him like perfume. He saw the tarp-covered stretcher being loaded into the coroner's van, and for a fleeting second, he swore the paramedic turned and winked at him. Pale eyes, familiar smile. Adrian's smile. When he blinked, the man was gone. Sleep came rarely now. When it did, Elior dreamed of a dinner table set for two. Adrian across from him, pouring red wine that wasn't wine. The candles burned low, the food was human, and he was laughing. Eat, Adrian would whisper. You're starving yourself. And Elior would eat. He always ate. He'd wake with blood in his mouth and the taste of salt in memory. One night, he couldn't take it anymore. He drove back to Blackvale. The town was nearly deserted, boarded windows, empty streets, the air thick with silence. The old slaughterhouse still stood, half buried in vines. Inside, dust floated like ash, and the smell of old iron clung to the walls. He found the basement again. The jars were gone, but the paintings remained cracked, faded, but unmistakable. Faces. His face, again and again. In one, Adrian stood behind him, hands on his shoulders. In another, their faces had merged, one mouth, one hunger. A sound came from the shadows. Slow footsteps. A voice. You came back. Elior froze. The figure stepped into the dim light, a man older, gaunter, eyes sunken, but unmistakable. Adrian. He was alive. No, not alive. Something else. His skin shimmered faintly, veins pulsing like roots beneath the surface. He smiled, and Elior's world fractured. I told you, Adrian said gently. We don't die. We change. Elior shook his head, trembling. You're dead. I killed you. Adrian took a step closer. You didn't kill me, Elior. You became me. He held up a mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't quite Elior. The eyes were different, hungrier. The teeth sharper. The skin pale under the flickering light. Elior screamed, shattering the glass, but the reflection still smiled, blood running down its chin. Adrian placed a hand on his cheek, tender, loving. It's not a curse, my love. It's freedom. You've always wanted to understand what it means to consume the truth. Now you do. He leaned in, whispering, the hunger isn't punishment. It's a bond. You're mine now as I am yours. When dawn came, the townspeople reported seeing the silhouettes walking down the old Blackvale road hand in hand, vanishing into the mist. The killings began again soon after. Not random this time, precise, ritualistic. Each victim's body missing the heart. Each heart replaced with a painted stone, carved with a single word, love. Months later, rumors spread through nearby towns about a traveling art exhibition that appeared without warning. The show was titled Devotion. The paintings were disturbingly lifelike portraits of people the audience swore they'd seen before, though no one could remember where. The artist never showed his face, but witnesses said there were two men, one tall, dark-haired, wearing gloves. the other pale and smiling, humming softly as he hung the paintings. When the exhibition closed each night, the gallery owner would lock up. By morning, the owner was gone and a new portrait would appear on the wall. No one ever found the men again, but in every town they passed through, the same smell lingered: red wine and iron, blending into the rain. And somewhere in the dark, a voice would whisper, "We are what we eat," and love is never sated. Years later, an anonymous journal was discovered near the ruins of Blackvale, its pages soaked in blood and salt water. The final entry read, "I no longer know which of us writes these words. The hunger has no face now, no name. Only love, only need." He promised eternity, and he was right. We feed, we love, we remain. Beneath it, in faint, smudged ink, two initials intertwined like veins, E, H, plus A, V. The rain fell softly on the page, and beneath the earth, something laughed.